Unfinished Symphony, co-authored with Michelle Nolden. Brooklyn Ward moves through the concrete playground like water streaming through a gutter, nearly invisible, carrying flotsam and secrets in her wake. She sees four buffs for her squad in a pickup game, shouting, the ball hurtling across the court. She melts into the shadow cast by the five-story Ohio State Home 23 and turns the corner to a side yard. She is on a mission. She cannot be seen. After making sure no one is there to spot her, she tests the door to the south stairwell. Unlocked, like Thor said. Now to find out what Thor wants her to do before she goes through that door. Taking a breath, she pulls the hood of her jacket over her face and moves across the side yard to the 10-foot wall that stands between the school and the outside world. Her heart is pounding. This is the only part of the side yard that cannot be seen by security cameras, but any teachers or any state ward glancing out of the small windows might see her. She has a few friends in the home and fewer privileges after Tuesday's brawl. With Thor's help, she hopes that will change. She finds a spot in the side yard where she has a good angle on the hallway windows, all the way up to the 5th floor. Someone moves past the window on the 4th floor but doesn't look out. If they did, they might recognize her because that's Brooklyn's floor. A long institutional hallway lined with identical dorm rooms. There are 9 other girls in Brooklyn's room. Most are still 15, but a few have just turned 16. Like her. Most everyone will be in their rooms or the small rec lounge today, since Sunday is the only day they're allowed real downtime. The girly girls will be all about boys and gossip in classes and clothes. The buff girls will be all about boys and gossip in classes and guns. Even though the girls in her room are the closest thing she knows to a family, she's in no hurry to get back to the petty squabbles and the mind-numbing conversations. No one on the 4th floor so much as glances out of the hallway window, but one level up on floor 5, Thor appears. They are partners in this mission, but he sent her down there alone, as he always does. This time, however, he didn't tell her exactly what the mission was. Today, he refused to tell her until she was in position, which means it's probably something Brooklyn would balk at if she knew in advance. She wonders if Thor realizes how much more excited that makes Brooklyn at the prospect. In the 5th floor window, Thor flashes the sign for all clear, and then ground floor. The next sign she misses. When she signals him to repeat, she reads impatience in his response. He moves his hands a little more slowly, exaggerating the gesture as if to an idiot. Headmaster. She swallows. Really? He wants her to snoop through the headmaster's office? She spreads her hands. For what? And he better have a good reason. If she gets caught, it's over for her. She sees his answer. New state reports. Then she thinks he signs rumor. Not specific and not helpful. She cuts off another string of signs that are hard to read from 5 floors below with an abrupt okay. Satisfied, Thor leaves the window to return to his room, and Brooklyn crosses the side yard to the unlocked stairwell door. She moves through the ground floor hallway, taking the long way to the headmaster's office. In the distance, she hears the cries of a younger child. The echo is hollow and ghostly. No way of telling exactly where the child is. No one will calm those cries anyways. Not enough staff. Toughen up, kid, thinks Brooklyn, or you'll get eaten alive. From outside comes the atonal sound of bouncing balls on the concrete playground. Then, from farther down the hall, she hears something different. The musical tones of a piano. A teacher playing, perhaps? But Brooklyn suspects otherwise. She tracks the sound to one of the music classrooms. As it's a Sunday, no classes are being taught. No one should be in here today. It's against the rules. She quietly cracks the door just enough to peer inside. Risa. She should have known. Risa is Brooklyn's age, but you wouldn't know it. She seems to exist in a different place from most stay-home girls. And while other kids are terrified of breaking the rules for fear of getting unwound, Risa does whatever she pleases. A lot like Brooklyn, but unlike Brooklyn, Risa never seems to get caught. It's infuriating. And what makes it even more irritating is that she's good. Brooklyn watches her dainty fingers dancing across the keyboard, playing a piece that seems too complex for two hands. Even though the practice room's piano is out of tune, Brooklyn finds herself soothed by Risa's playing. And while part of her wishes that a guard would stomp down the corridor and haul Risa away for discipline, another part of her wishes that Risa would just play and play and play. Piano or any other instrument was out of the question for Brooklyn. She didn't have the ear or know how to infuse her playing with passion. In the 5th grade, Mr. Durkin actually grabbed her recorder and snapped the plastic instrument in half. I felt an overwhelming need to put the poor thing out of his misery, he said, and the other kids laughed. But Durkin loved Risa. Risa was chosen for musical enrichment, while Brooklyn was hurled into the mob of kids relegated to physical refinement. In other words, they discounted her brain and set out to build her brawn, putting her on track to become a military buff. Not that Brooklyn minds the physical focus of her life. She likes sports and the strength training. She scores high points in marksmanship, but to know that Risa was seen as somehow better than her still makes Brooklyn stew. If it had been anyone else but Risa, Brooklyn might be able to stomach it. But they have a history that goes back nearly 16 years to their cradle days and exploded 7 years later. Perhaps everyone else has forgotten it, perhaps even Risa has, but Brooklyn is not one to let wounds go, no matter how old they are. Still, she enjoys Risa's playing in spite of herself, so she lets the door of the music room stay open a crack and sits beside it, just for a minute or so, listening to Risa as Risa performs, taking guilty pleasure each time she stumbles and misses a note in her performance. It's good to know that Little Miss Perfect isn't so perfect after all. Risa ends the piece and begins monotonous scales, and so with Brooklyn's musical interlude over, she takes the stairwell over to the staff offices. Sunday means that the headmaster isn't in his office, and it's a good time to snoop. Information is everything. Brooklyn learned that in her intermediate electronic warfare class, but she isn't using electronics together until now. She will go old school, flipping through files, searching the desk, finding information she can use. Hearing raised voices, she stalls in the stairwell. Luckily, she hasn't opened the stairwell door, which creaks badly, and isn't directly across from the headmaster's office. In small increments, she cracks it open, just as she had inched open the music room door to hear Risa play. This time, she won't be hearing a sonata. "No more delays, Marshall," she hears Headmaster Thomas say. "Give me your preliminary metrics now. You have till 4:30 for your interim assessments, and I expect a final report 1 hour after testing tomorrow." Brooklyn holds her breath. A meeting with teachers on Sunday? Even surprise government inspections happen during the week. She shivers, and not just because the stairwell is drafty. Stay-at-home runs on rigid schedules. Departures from normal behavior scream red alert. Before dinner, I want the children in your charge ranked. Reports from floors 4 and 5 only. Any questions? Brooklyn does not wait for the questions. Any teachers leaving early will take the stairwell and see her. She eases the door closed, cutting off the voices. Quaking, she heads upstairs and into the room of a 13-year-old. Even though she throws herself onto his bed, he doesn't react. Thor leans over his keyboard, his nose almost touching the screen. His room isn't much larger than a mop closet, but he gets his own room. The luck of being in a protected class. Waiting till he realizes that she's there, she stares at the bookshelf stacked with overdue library books, the laundry bag overflowing with soiled clothes, and a half-eaten sandwich on the nightstand. The only wall decoration is a rusty mallet, nicked from the handyman's toolkit. Thor's hammer. She has no idea who started naming all the protected class kids after gods, but Thor always rolled with it. And besides, when you're alone in a room with a stay-at-home, a hammer can ward off the worst kinds of intrusions. Her attention drifts back to Thor. He still doesn't seem to have sensed her presence, and she tires of waiting. Stretching till her foot reaches the back of his chair, she gives it a good kick. He jerks forward and then swivels his chair. His fingers fly. I knew you were there, B. When he signs the letter B, his fingertips curl like a claw, his name for her. She grins. No other kid would dare to give her a nickname, but she likes him making a weapon of hers. How, she signs, and laughs when he indicates the mirror near his computer, facing the door. She laughs again when he mocks her by thumping his clawed bee across his forearm, so he had also felt her enter the room. Thor always knows. She would be suspicious of anyone else so observant, but there's no one she trusts more than Thor. You're gonna freak when I tell you what I discovered, Brooklyn sighs. He sighs, spinning in his chair closer to the bed. You can't be in here, B, and I can't keep wiping the demerits from your records. I told you to talk to me at dinner. He signs with American Sign Language, abbreviated by the home dialect of all the stay-at-home deaf kids use. They've been friends since she stood up for him on the playground nearly 10 years ago, so Brooklyn can extrapolate what she sees into her hearing words English. She signs slower than he does, but her fingers jab the air insistently. We need to talk now. Teachers met in the headmaster's office. He wants kids ranked this afternoon. On a Sunday. His eyebrows raise. Probably the state wants more data to feed their paperwork monster. She knows he doesn't believe that. After all, he's the one who suspected something was going on. For just the top 2 floors, she signs. He sucks in a breath and nods. He understands as she does. Only kids 13 and older live on the top floors. Another harvesting so soon? His fingers trail off and his gaze meets hers. Budget cuts, Brooklyn suggests. So State Home sends another batch of kids to the harvest camps. It's something they've never done before. Keeping the size of the home's population consistent has always been at issue. Around 10 kids go every 6 months or so. But culling kids because of budget cuts? She looks to Thor, hoping he'll laugh at the very idea or just shake his head at how preposterous it is. But there's a seriousness to him that now makes her frown. They meet eyes and Brooklyn stops signing. Now she mouths the words for him, slowly, solemnly. You know something I don't? The teachers make Thor speak in class, or at least they try to. Everywhere else he only signs. Brooklyn never makes him read her lips unless she needs to read him. He see his eyes. Peace, Brooks, he signs back. I know nothing, but I watch the news. You think you're at risk? She returns to signing. Thor's always telling her that her signing conveys only words, that she doesn't have the knack of showing emotion through her fingers. Like what Duncan said about the way she played music, that it sounded like a death rattle. Buffs push the limits. The headmaster can't complain that I make a good monster. She fingers in her usual boring way, hoping that Thor will miss the bitter twist in her lips and the fear in her eyes. And you're worried that you've lost points because of that fight last week? She looks from his fingers to his face and feels her mouth drop. How did he know? He grins. Don't underestimate the Deaf Network, B. She shoots back a sign not invented by the deaf. He laughs. But then his face turns more serious. Even buffs know to kiss up to their lieutenants, B. It's the one survival skill you lack. Thor taps her arm to make sure she gets the point. I like you, B, because you're not political. You say what you mean. You mean what you say. But that won't win you any friends. She mouths at him. The list is about rank and how you score against other kids. It's not a popularity contest. Then she signs, Will you find out where I am on the list? He leans back in the chair, the metal complaining loudly. She manages a smile, knowing he wouldn't care even if he heard it. He studies her somberly. Why are you anxious, Bee? Your grades are fine. Maybe she's a little worried about Tuesday's fight, but he doesn't need to know that. She shrugs. Yeah, all is good. I just gotta know. She feels her forehead crease with uneasiness, and Thor sees it. Now he looks worried, too. When Brooklyn changes for dinner, Abigail, one of her dorm mates, admires her Piranha River shirt. Another dorm mate, Naomi, asks where she got it. Brooklyn shrugs. Charity closet. Some church sent a big delivery yesterday. A ripple of excitement moves through the room, like the vapor of lemon-scented soap and mint chapstick that always hangs there. Abigail asks suspiciously why their dorm guardian hadn't made an announcement about the delivery, and another dorm mate asks how Brooklyn nabbed the shirt when the closet is closed on Sundays. I got it yesterday. But you said it came in yesterday, Abigail said. It takes 24 hours to clean and sort them. Brooklyn winks. So it pays to know someone in laundry, don't it? Some of the girls laugh, and others stare enviously at the shirt. It's nice to be the center of attention. The focus of jealousy, she adds generously, next time a good haul comes in, I'll let you know. You should have told us this time, Naomi says, disgruntled. You're supposed to watch out for your word sisters. Brooklyn musters a smile, thinking, yeah, right. In a state home, you watch out for yourself and maybe for those in your squad, but most definitely yourself, because no one else will. Next time, she repeats. The stay-at-home dining hall holds about 300 wards, meaning they eat in shifts in a large room painted institutional green with puke yellow accents. She and her fellow 16-year-olds sit their shifts at long tables lit by high windows and low bay fluorescents. Too much light, in Brooklyn's opinion. Stay-at-home food doesn't bear close inspection. At dinner, Logan, one of her squad mates, slides onto the bench next to her. Logan is strong, but bumblephoted in relays, and useless with nav tools. She drills him, and he gives her the latest news on food and clothing deliveries. For some reason, he thinks she's getting the better deal, and should be grateful for it. That shirt looks good on you, he says. He's sitting too close, and one of the dining room monitors frowns at Brooklyn, like it's her fault. She hip-checks him and jerks her head at the monitor, still giving her the evil eye. Logan huffs and moves 4 inches away. Heard tell of ice cream deliveries later tonight. Wanna meet in the kitchen stairwell after lights out? Brooklyn shakes her head. What are you, nuts? Dorm guardians are on high alert after last week's brawl, and there are no deliveries on Sunday. Foiled in his attempt to get her alone, Logan squirms a bit. He skates by on his looks and any athletic ability that depends on strength. He'll make a good buff because he follows orders and is quick to display muscle. Anything requiring thinking or elegance isn't in his biovac. Through years of inactivity, his brain is about the size of the ice cream-shaped mashed potato lump on her plate. She likes that about him, though. Being around him is no strain. Since their squads were resorted last year and they ended up on the same one, it has become easier for her. Everyone likes Logan, and since he likes her, the rest of the buffs accept her. She likes that about him, too. And on top of that, you know how heavily new rankings get weighed. Brooklyn chokes on her meatloaf and mash. Huh? What new rankings? Logan sighs. The ones I've been talking about. Weren't you listening? Hardly ever. Sorry, I got distracted thinking about how well you did rope climbing last Friday. He brightens. Yeah, major points on that, right? Kip thinks. She couldn't care less about what Kip thinks. Tell me about the new rankings. He scratches his head. Right. Sarge says the whole school is getting tested tomorrow. A real marathon. It'll be weighted against our old metrics, so all our rankings could shift. This has to be what she'd overheard in the headmaster's office. Old rankings sent in today. Another round of testing to see what shakes out. Do you know why, she asks? She swallows and tries to act unconcerned, but it's too late. She really has to work on her poker face skills. Calm down. The government is crazy about reports. We're always getting tested, B. She stiffens and then forces herself to relax. She's told Logan not to call her B. Told him about 50 times. She doesn't know why it's okay for Thor to call her B, but not Logan. Pick your battles, she reminds herself. And she does need the lug. Yeah, you're right. She slides her tapioca pudding to him. He smiles happily and dives in. All the squads are being tested? She asks casually. Our grade and higher, Logan speaks around a mouthful of pudding. Littler buffs aren't rated until 13 and are pretty useless till 15. He sounds proud of the fact that he's reached a useful age, but too thick to remember it also means he's ripe for unwinding. This unexpected testing has to be for a harvest camp list. Feeling sick, she looks down around the dining hall. She needs to know where she's ranked. She zeroes in where the deaf kids eat, napkin wads flying, fingers and elbows dancing, faces transforming with silent stories they tell. Thor isn't there. After dinner, she can't shed Logan. It's past time when teachers, administrators, and dorm guardians would have submitted their assessments. Thor knows the weighting algorithm state homes use for ranking the wards. All legal and absent are subjective malice. Right. Every staff member knows how to massage the data, and every staff member does. If she has to wait one more minute to find Thor, she'll scream. But Logan drags her to the playground. A basketball game has already started, and his best bud, Kip, shouts for him to join. Come on, Brooklyn. Logan tries to pull her into the court. She notices the dorm guardians watching the game. If they hadn't already turned in their numbers, she would have been tempted to impress them with her excellent sportsmanship behavior and passing skills. But unless they witness her killing someone, anything they report now is moot. Whatever nuggets of misery were in the dorm guardians' reports, it all gets hurled into the computer along with tomorrow's test results. She rotates her wrist and fakes a wince. Sprained it yesterday. I'd best let it heal up for testing tomorrow. She prods him towards the court. I'll cheer you on from the bench. She waits about 5 minutes. She shouts steady encouragement and advice for Logan, and one loud hoot for Kip making a basket. Racing up and down the court, Logan forgets she exists. She eases off the yard and gallops up the back staircase to Thor's room. He's not there. She heads for the audio lab where the deaf kids hang out. Thor says it's ironic, but she doesn't get it. She taps Hera's shoulder and asks where Thor is. Hera looks half annoyed at the interruption, but in the same way Brooklyn's relationship with Logan gains her acceptance with the squad, her friendship with Thor earns tolerance for her with the deaf. Maybe they make fun of her. English. She resorts to spelling out words she should know, and for signing like a boy, and her monotone fingering, but knowing their language makes her a member of their tribe, even if just an honorary one. Hera signs, he skipped tonight, said he'd had to finish a project in the computer lab. Brooklyn should have thought of that herself. Breaking through some firewalls, Thor can do safely from his own computer, but hacking through the trickier ones, he'd use a computer not traceable to him. Her fingers flashing her thanks, Brooklyn heads down the east staircase and to the computer lab. On a Sunday evening, the computer lab is nearly empty, except for a couple of younger kids brushing up on factory apps and Thor sitting in the back at a back station, keeping an eye on the computer room attendant, who seems fairly disinterested and unobservant. When she slips in, he waves her over. You were right, he says. He signs her. 21 kids will be unwound, 7 each from the academic, physical, and arts division. She tries to keep her hands from shaking as she signs back. 21 is supposed to be a lucky number. Thor shakes his head. This is a very unlucky blackjack. His fingers fly with explanations on how he retrieved the data off the server, built matrices and of the inputs and applied his algorithm, but she doesn't care. She waves her hand to stop him, then fixes her gaze on his dark eyes and signs, "What's my ranking?" Revealing nothing in his eyes, he swivels the screen to her. A few names jump out at Brooklyn right away. Logan is safe. So is Risa, both a decent distance above the blood-red line of the cut, and Brooklyn finds herself aggravated that she saw Risa's name before her own. Finally, she finds herself. Brooklyn Ward, SH23-49285. She's safe, 3 spots closer to the cut than Logan, but 2 farther than Risa. Brooklyn has escaped the blackjack of doom. She'd really have to screw up tomorrow's testing to be put on the Harvest Camp bus. Brooklyn feels featherlight and laughs out loud. She beat out Piano Girl by 2. It's the first time since that life-altering ruckus with Risa that when they were 7 that she's had the upper hand. She can't remember even feeling this powerful, this fierce, this good. Testing day dawns damp and cool. The latter seems a good omen. Heat saps you. Brooklyn makes her best times when the temps are low. Out on the field, her sarge looks them over, sneering at some, his gaze passing over others indifferently. He growls at Logan to move left for no reason. Maybe Logan was a fraction of an inch too close to her again. She misses his warmth as he shifts away. Then she realizes that the sarge is nervous, and so is the lieutenant. But do they know about the stay-at-home unwinding cuts? They must. She scans the bleachers for the scorekeepers and freezes when she sees adult buffs in the stand. She sees Majors in khakis, his oak clusters glinting off his shoulders in the weak sunlight. Why are they here? What's with the brass? She asks Logan, her low voice, her lips barely moving. Logan's eyes flick to the clutch of uniform. Don't know, don't care. Ready to put on a show? Brooklyn debates telling him about the headmaster's list, then figures it's kinder to keep quiet. Yeah, her whisper is predatory, and she squints her eyes dangerously. I'm ready. Some of the squads are sent to the shooting range, but her squad is up for the fitness test first. The 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, then a 2-mile run on the track. She wishes she could be shooting first, having qualified for a marksmanship badge last year. It would give her an early lead in the rankings, and a nice psychological bump is always a good thing. When it comes to running, Brooklyn is not the fastest on the squad, nor is she the slowest. She is a distance runner, because she knows how to pace herself for the long haul. It's the way she lives. It's the way she survives. Slow and steady wins the race. The old adage goes, but Brooklyn is never expected to win, just to show. For her, it's slow and steady takes 3rd place. That's always been good enough to keep her whole, at least until now. Right now, she's made the cut on the headmaster's list, but she's still too close for comfort. She pushes hard through the push-ups, but with 63, she only takes 4th place. Even though she about splits her gut, her 59 sit-ups only get her 5th place. Then, while glaring at the scoreboard, she catches sight of Risa in the stands with her usual pack of friends. What is Piano Girl doing here? Why isn't she practicing for her own test this afternoon? Risa laughs at something her friends say, and hot shame courses through Brooklyn. Is she talking about her? Making fun of her? Did she see that Brooklyn only made 4th and 5th rankings? As if Risa could feel Brooklyn staring at her across the field, she meets her angry look. But then, that far away, she wouldn't be able to see the expression on Brooklyn's face. Brooklyn tries to put Piano Girl out of her mind, but now she's wedged in like a song you can't stop playing in your head, a distraction that Brooklyn definitely doesn't need. As they line up on the track for the 2-mile run, she sees the Major staring in front of her from the stands as well. She meets his gaze for a moment before leaning in to the starting stance. Nervously, she checks the light on the transponder clipped to her belt, still showing green, still streaming biometrics. At the Sarge's whistle, she leaps forward. On the first lap, she's last in the pack. She fights her desire to glance into the stands where the Major and Risa will be watching. Beginning in last doesn't matter. All that matters is where you finish. On the second lap, halfway through the 2-mile run, a good portion of her squad is flagging. She passes one, then two of her teammates. She finishes the third lap in the middle of the runners. Then in the last lap, she kicks into high gear. She catches up to Logan, who's not doing well, beet red and sucking air like a beached walrus. He weaves and he runs. Sweat pours off him. He doesn't notice when she passes him. Then Risa intrudes on her thoughts again, and it infuriates Brooklyn. But she realizes it's a fury she can use. She will not allow Miss Perfect to see Brooklyn be and also ran in this race. Brooklyn powers past the next three in her squad. Now there are only two more in front of her. When she reaches Kip, he shoots her in an astonished look. Then his jaw clenches. They run side by side, Kip straining as much as she is, refusing to be bested by a girl. And then a miracle. Kip goes down, almost shaken by her good luck. She crosses the finish line just 4 strides behind the boy in the number 1 spot. Second, she placed second in her squad. She immediately looks for Risa in the stands, but her eyes are bleary and she can't find her. Did she leave? Did she not see her place second? Trying to catch her breath, Brooklyn manages a smile at Logan, who almost fells her with his congratulatory shoulder slug. She peers over his shoulder to look for the Major, but he also seems to have disappeared. 15 minutes, Logan crows. You did it in 15 minutes and 4 seconds. She tries to act casual, but she can't help smiling big. It's her new personal best, and she's sorry that she's missing Thor's reaction to the streamed data back at the stay-home complex. That's when she sees Kip and the Sarge huddled on the grass in the center of the track. Sarge looks unhappy, and Kip's clutching his ankle. So what? Toughen up, dude. Competition sharpens a soldier. Pain makes you stronger. The shooting range is a long track, at the very edge of the stay-home grounds, nearly half a mile away. She heads towards it with the rest of her squad. Thirsty, she inhales a third of her canteen, then pours a third over her head. It feels good dribbling down her neck. She doesn't notice the clot of buffs in front of her slowing down or the ones behind her speeding up till someone shoves her into the muscle-bound guy ahead of her. His name is Dex, but everyone calls him Pex for obvious reason. She bounces off him and lands on her butt. He turns, reaches down, grabs her shirt, and jerks her to her feet so fast. Her head is spinning. What gives? He snarls. She pries his fingers off her shirt. Nothing, man. Someone pushed me. She turns around, but no one is there. She looks for Logan. Maybe he saw who had pushed her, but he's nowhere to be found. Half a dozen buffs are now looking at her, mostly guys. Not a friendly face in the crowd. She spreads her hands. Forget it. Let's go to the firing range. Someone pushed you? Peck said. You mean like this? He plants a big hand on her chest and shoves her. She lands on her ass again. Remembering Tuesday's fight and the note in her file about it, she can't take another black mark, especially now. Staying on the pavement, she tries an integrating smile. Yep, exactly like that. You all go on ahead. I'll wait here for Logan. She hopes mentioning Logan's name will appease them, but it doesn't. 2 buffs haul her to her feet. She balls her hands into fists, then her canteen, strangling it instead of Peck's. They won't make her angry. They won't. Peck sneers. You think you can trip Kip and get away with it? That catches her off guard. I didn't trip him. He just fell. Peck stepped closer until she smells his stinking breath. Kip says you did. You saying he lied? She feels rage over the others crash over her. She freezes. Then Peck slowly unscrews his canteen and takes a mouthful. She doesn't expect what he does next. He spits at her, right in her face. In shock, she stands in front of him, the water dribbling down her face and shirt. It doesn't feel good. It reminds her of when she wipes the spray from her face with the sleeve of her t-shirt, her fury rising. She can't control herself. Her canteen is still in her hand, and so she whacks Pex in the nose with it. He roars and reaches for her, but years of dirty fighting have honed her skills. She ducks under his hands and knees him in the groin. "What's going on?" Sarge yells. The lieutenant and Sarge are now standing next to her. Pex is paddling weakly on the ground, moaning. Most of the squad melts away from the scene. The horror of getting caught creeps over her. First, she swipes at her face. The grossness of Pex's spit almost seems worse. "He spat on me," Brooklyn says. The two men look down at Pex. His nose is bleeding from where her canteen hit it, and his hands cup his groin. "Get a medic," the Sarge growls. Someone races back to the track. The lieutenant studies her expressionlessly. "You're the one that started the fight last week." She could argue that it's never her who starts it, but she knows that what the headmaster wrote in the report. "Yes," she says, "but I didn't start this." The lieutenant nods at Sarge. "I don't want her with the others. Walk her to the firing range. Now." Sarge grabs her arm, and Frog marches her all the way to the shooting range behind the others, blistering her ears with commentary for the full time it takes to get there. He releases her near the cart. Her weapons locker is the only one left on the cart's bed. One of the plebs, a younger member of the squad, is charged with monitoring the weapons cart. Seeing the scowl on both Brooklyn and the sergeant's face, he steps back and lets her open her weapon locker. Jabbing a finger at her and stopping inches away from her eyes, Sarge says, "You go last. The squad's probably gunning for you, and I won't be explaining why you got shot. Hear me?" She nods. She's lucky they haven't already sent her back to the state home. She's actually surprised they're letting her finish the tests. When they call her name, she uses every technique she's learned about relaxing and how to breathe while shooting. In the first firing position, she lines up her rifle on the barricade. She makes 8 of 9 good shots, but then the gun jams. Just like she's been taught, she slaps, pulls, observes, releases, taps, then shoots again. Distracted, she misses the shot. In the second firing position, she stands without the rifle supported. It malfunctions again on the second and sixth shots. She clears it each time, but now she's rattled. She misses all but 4 shots. In the third position, she kneels in a make-believe foxhole, but now it feels like she really is in a foxhole, fighting for her life. It's nearly noon, and the sun is high, beating down. The rifle jams on the first shot, and she's tempted to throw it as far as she can and then stomp on it, though the only thing she can see are the single pop-up targets downrange. She knows her squad is watching every shot. 5 minutes later, she still can't clear the malfunction. She admits defeat. As she surrenders her weapon, she sees her score. 12. Miserable. Lowest score in her squad. Logan is waiting by the gate, but before he can say anything to her, the lieutenant orders him away. The sergeant takes her back to the main state home building alone on the army cart. He drives, and she sits on the seat next to him, the lockers and ammo boxes jouncing in the back. Not once does he speak on the entire return trip.